It's time to start taking control of your life. Hey everybody, it's Pastor Chris. Hope you're doing great because it's a great day. And today is also a great day because we are kicking off a brand new series based on the New York Times best-selling book called Boundaries. When to say yes, how to say no, and start taking control of your life. Now, I get it. When I say boundaries, it's all sounds a little vague, like what are we actually talking about here? So let me demonstrate why this series is so important for you. Raise your hand if this applies to you. Raise your hand if somebody in your life is making poor choices and it's affecting your happiness. Go ahead, raise your hand, raise them high. Or raise your hand if you feel like you have too many responsibilities. Or raise your hand if you feel like you have so many responsibilities you don't even know where to begin. Raise your hand if you have a family member who takes far more than they give. Or raise your hand if you have a teacher or a boss who expects too much of you. Raise your hand if you're behind schedule on something or if you spend too much money on something. Raise your hand if you have a voicemail, an email, or a text message sitting in your inbox that you know you need to answer but you don't want to. And if you raise your hand at any point, this series is perfect for you because being nicer isn't working. Trying harder isn't working. We're taking responsibility for someone else's shortcoming. It isn't working. And the reason it's not working is because it's not an issue of effort. It's an issue of boundaries. Like think of two houses. What separates them is this property line called a boundary. And that boundary is there so you know what you control and what you don't, what you own and what you don't. And when your boundary lines aren't clear, when they're fuzzy, or when you've drawn a boundary line on what isn't your property, that's where we find stress and conflict. And just like homeowners need to draw lines around their property, we need to draw lines around our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of our lives, both for ourselves and for the people in our lives. And this is also where we start to see why this issue of boundaries matters to God, because He has plans for your life. And there are things that are in His plan for you and things that are not in His plan for you. And in fact, when Jesus was describing what this thing called sin is, He used the word trespass, as in there's a boundary and you trespass against that boundary. That's why He prays, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And so in this series, we're going to talk about what are boundaries? What are God's boundaries for us? How can you be a loving person and establish a boundary for somebody else? What are the words you use to set a boundary, to let somebody know that they're trespassing against you? And what do you do when you set a boundary and the people in your life get upset or angry with the boundary you set? What do you do then? That's what we're going to talk about in this series. I'm excited for this series, Boundaries, because I believe a happier, healthier version of you is waiting on the other side.